Hi folks, welcome back to our shed build. We're going to get the roofing on today, so stick around and I'll show you how we're going to do it. Okay folks, today we're looking at getting the roof on, and you can see we've already got all of our supports in. This is kind of the structure of it, but what we do need, because we're using roofing sheets which run front to back of the building, we're going to need some purlins to support them. A couple of options there. One is just to rest them straight on top, which is kind of like the normal way, but you end up with a much deeper fascia on the front, and I think for simplicity I'm going to install them in hangers. So this will be the top of our roof. That keeps the roof a little bit lower because I don't want it to be too tall, although it's quite nice to have more working space inside. It's quite nice because it's kind of sunk down into this lower garden, so we'll keep it as low as possible. I've sat this timber here just to the straight edge, and we can use that just to cut along with the bottom of the blade on there. Batten. Please don't take off in the wind. So that end we've got on this just end fascia board, which we're using. It's kind of a fascia, but it's also going to be supporting the roofing. The centre we can just screw in, but if you look here, because there's a twist in this end board, all I've done is screwed in a temporary block here, and then hopefully we get a clamp on it and pull it in. The screw alone probably won't do it, and one hand is a bit dodgy. Well, we just spent a full half a day getting to this point, which is finishing off all the cladding, cutting everything to size, and working out how the roofing is going to work, because we're going to use trim boards on the end, like barge boards. Plus, they were 3 meters long, and I thought they were going to be a bit longer, and user error. But anyway, we're ready now. We're going to stick the first one up, and then the next section is going to be made up of 3 sheets, so it's a little bit more complex, and I want to get them as a dry fit before I work out where our intermediate purlins are going to be. Okay, so just feed it down the roof. Towards me or towards you?
Towards you.
Really?
Yeah.
That's where it's meant to be?
Yeah.
It's a pathetic roof light. If we lay a full sheet on next, then it will leave this gap and we'll just see how much light comes through it.
Okay.
Yeah. Right, for the plastic or the GRP sheet, I've bought one length. I need basically 2 halves. So to cut it, I'm going to attempt it with a metal cutting disc, and if that doesn't work, then we'll move on to something else. But I think this might be our best bet. It's nice and thin. Okay, we're just having a bit of a dry fit. We've got a full sheet, and then we've got this section where I've got a steel GRP, then steel. The problem we've got is this ends up, by the time you've got an overlap, this ends up too small, but equally I don't want it huge. So we're just overheating here. It's going to get hot enough as it is. What the problem is the steel either side I got cut at 125 each, which basically by the time you've got an overlap, you've got a metre of steel plastic, then a metre of steel. So I'm going to cut this back one down a bit, just so we end up with a slightly bigger. These purlins are kind of the size I wanted. So I think we're going to take about 200mm off this back one. Yeah.
So,
On the cross, yeah. X marks the spot. What I decided to do is dry fit the whole roof first, just so we can take any of the guesswork out, because we're making it up as we go along really. The covering on these is 1 metre cover, so that's fairly easy to do. So if you can work out your roof to be exactly, a metre increments, then that does help. The other option is just to do a double overlap, which is what we're going to have to do here. So rather than cutting along the length of the sheet, you can just do an extra overlap, and I think that's hopefully where we're going to end up over here. And just so I can get on and put everything on, I've just put a screw in, just skew nailed. Right, we've got our second sheet to cut, and what I've done is sat it on. The cut is just level with this purlin here, so it's going to be hidden. It's quite hard when you're going up and down on these this profile. When I cut the sections out of the van, it's much easier because you use flat sheet metal. So it's just working with what we've got. Alternatively, if you've got a cold cutting disc for a circular saw, which doesn't send sparks, because what you don't want is the sparks getting onto the paintwork. With this nibbler attachment, they're really cheap and really simple. I'll put the link to this one if I can find it on Amazon. But basically, you've got 2 ends anyway, so if one goes blunt, but also we just worked out that because of the way the profiles are, we needed to turn the cutter 90 degrees, so there's just an Allen key in the end and we could swivel this round. Because we've got an anti-condensation lining on these, which is like a felt carpety type material, it was clogging up a little bit, but we just worked through that. So at the end of day one, I was hoping to get it all done in one day, but like always, things get in the way. It was a lot of design as we go with this, so there was extra timbers and bits to sort out and where I'm going to have the overhangs. Now, the purlins are just temporarily screwed in. I'll be putting them in hangers probably, or at least getting some proper fixings in there. What you can probably make out is that the 2 GRP roof light areas have slid out the way. The reason for that is our concrete slab's only a couple of days old, so I want it to keep drying out and keep airing. So overnight it's going to be nice and dry. So that's going to help just keep the airflow up. But as far as windows and doors, it's just the 1 door. I might do a simple window in the future, but for now I just want it a nice dry secure storage space. Now the benefit of getting the roof on like this, just loosely laid out, is if there's any discrepancies in the squareness of the building. Fortunately there wasn't, but it just helps judge everything. We can just even everything out. Then we'll be starting at the far end. You really want to start thinking about the prevailing wind, so you know that your laps are a certain way. We also want to make sure that these joins here have got a 250 overlap, and apart from that it's pretty straightforward. So tomorrow I'll be working up there. We'll slide everything to one side and then we'll start on the fixing, so we'll pick that up tomorrow.